Hello everyone, my name is Guilherme and welcome to another video, and this is the most exciting video ever because this is the making of my Legendary 51 game, a game that I've made in 72 hours in the previous weekend for this game gen, and the theme was every 10 seconds. But what is special about this game is that it was entirely made using my own game engine. So everything that you see in this screen was made by me, and that's like mind-blowing. All the assets, all the textures, all the code, and all the game engine was made by me. That's super exciting, and I will show you everything that's new as I promised in the last video. So the last video was the gameplay and a little bit of a commentary on what is everything about in this project. And as I explained it in the last video, this is not like a super game, a super badass and modern game, but it's a simple game, and the objective was exactly to understand how I could make the game engine better. So it will be really interesting if you guys want to go back some videos ago to show how the engine was before this event and how the engine is right now after this event, because I've made like so many new features and I'm so excited to show you guys. So let's jump to this and stop talking about. So you can see here Cave Engine, of course, and I will not explain everything on it. I'll just explain what I've made different and how this game engine is organized. So I do have the asset browser here, and I'll start here because this will make more sense. I do have a test scene here, which is like a simple scene with some testing stuff. And I do have inside the gameplay the actual test scene, which is like here is where I was creating all the mechanics of the game and so on. It does use my template system, and if you are familiar with Unity or Unreal, template is more like a prefab or a blueprint that you can reuse in your projects. This engine, by the way, does have like the option. So the game is running, you can see because it have this outline, and I can click here and change stuff while the game runs. So I got stuck, I can go ahead and unstuck me and can see here that I can keep going and playing the game. And if I stop the game, everything will go back to normal, just as you expect, okay? So this is the test scene. I do have the levels here, which is a bunch of different scenes for each levels. Level 1 to 4, all the levels here are displayed here, and you guys can see exactly how I've built this game using the engine. This is a new thing. I've added this option here to change the zoom in the asset browser, because some people said, oh, I want it very tiny, and other people prefer it very like huge icons. So you can now select the zoom that you want. And something that's new as well is that you no longer need to navigate between like the scenes using this left stuff. You can go ahead and let me select this, and you can click here in the top to see the hierarchy that you are. So I can go back to home, and I can keep going and editing my game, which is super cool and a good addition to the game engine. This is new, by the way. This is all new. So I only point out new stuff here because this will make more sense. And again, this is how I'm structuring the game. And to create like a character and the enemies and the power-ups, you can see here in the scene graph. Let me go to a simple level because it will make this more easy to visualize, like the test scene. You can see that most of the assets are green. And what is a green asset, you may ask? This is a template. In other words, this is an asset that uses a template in order to replicate everything that's going on. I can double click any templates here. This is a new stuff right now to edit them. So this enemy, for example, it's a template and it's here. If I double click it here, it goes to a different level where I can edit the enemy. So if I want to add a mesh, for example, let me add this huge mesh. And then all the enemies in the games will have this box here on top of it and behind. Something like that. And now new stuff as well. I do have this back to scene because it was super annoying to having to select the scene here. So after I finish editing my template, I can click here to go back to scene, and you can see that all my enemies are now updated, and you can see this huge box here on every single one of them. So this is a good addition. I can also edit the template by clicking here, but this is not new. And of course, I can locate them in the file browser. So I do have the templates folder, and this is a folder that I've created. I can rename this to everything that I want. I just wanted to call it templates, and you can see that I do have the enemy here. So if I double click it, it will allow me to edit. And now another new thing is that the thumbnails here are way better right now. You can see that I can actually like see what's going on, because before I was not able to. So you can see the enemy, and if I delete this and go back to my scene, I need to update my thumbnail here and show the enemy exactly as it is. Like it will try its best to show the thumbnail like the actual thing here, except for stuff that does not have a mesh. For example, the player camera, it's just a camera, so there's no mesh here, and I'm not sure yet what to do. Some people like recommended to put the cave engine icon here or just a regular icon. I don't know. We'll see. And this is a particle effects. This is how I made particles in the engine. I can reset the particles to see it again. There's alpha blending. This is not new, so this is all load. I can just a bunch of settings here, like the particle life. I can adjust the tint, and this is interesting, like the tint, like the alpha. I can have a graph to make the particle fall off here. So this is all very interesting stuff. So let me go back to my scene, and I can edit everything. So this for example is the portal, and the portal is a bunch of objects. You can see that I've literally created this the portal like that as a bunch of different objects, and some of them have logic, of course. For example, this which is the portal itself does have a Python component attached to it, and I will go ahead and explain a little bit better on how this Python component evolved. And it does have a rigid body. So very simple. I can go back to my scene and keep going. Another addition that I've made into the engine, and this one I'm very excited about. Oh, by the way, simple addition. You can see this gizmo. Before it was always pointing like the, for example, this red gizmo, which is the x-axis, before it was inverted sometimes, depending on the angle of the camera. But I found that annoying and a little bit confusing. Now it no longer inverts this, so a small usability fix, but makes all the difference, in my opinion. And talking about new stuff, now, like, oh my god, I'm very excited about this one. Remember that I was talking about the Python properties that I wanted to add to an object. For example, this plane here, which is the ground. If I go ahead here in the tags, it does have tags. I wanted to remove the tags and only use the properties, but I decided to not, because the tag is 100% C++, meaning it will be faster to do some stuff using the tags than it will we use in the properties. And the tag is just a way to identify. So this is the ground, and if I want to add a tag to identify this as, for example, ice, I can create a new tag and call it ice. So now this ground does have an ice tag. I can delete this. But the properties, you can see here, there's no property, but I can, a property is pretty much like, as the name suggests, a name with a value attached to it. I've already done a video explaining this. So if I add a test property here, you can see that the test can have a number, and I can change the type of these properties, for example, to a vector tree, and now the test does have a vector tree behavior. And I can, again, keep changing this, can have a string, and so on. So let me remove this property here and keep going, because now the property are not only used to identify a single entity, it is used for two new things, and I will start with the less exciting one, and then I'll move to the more exciting one. So if I click here in the scene graph and click edit scene settings, or I can just click the background, I forgot about that, I can click the background, you can see that the scene itself now have a properties tab. And if I click here, you can see that I can add some properties to my scene, like this is global to the scene. And it's very interesting to store a score, or if you are making a game with different modes and you want to have like different settings for the scenes, you can do it. For example, right now, those four properties here that this scene have, they will represent like the player will update these properties with the progress, which is the progress that will appear here in the UI. The wave, because in the odd waves, I think it's Parallel mode and the non-odd waves are the normal word. I don't remember exactly the order. And the speed that the character is moving, because as I explained it, like the time passes differently if the character is walking or not. So this is all updated here. And also I do have the orbs. These orbs is this those items here, and there's a script in the orb. This is the orb. There's a script here that changes the settings in this scene to represent like the actual orb amount. So this is good for me to share information between between entities in the scene. So it was a great addition. I'm very excited about that. The last thing that I wanted to add are properties, but I ended up not having time. Actually, I do not remember to do that. Is a global property stuff for you to share stuff between different scenes, because there's no way to do this right now using the engine code. So this would be a good addition for future stuff. So this is new, but now let me talk about the new stuff. If I click here in the entity template, I can click one time to edit it. It does have the hierarchy. This is hard to pronounce. And you can see here all the objects. So I'm here selecting my player. Again, it is a template, but it does have a properties. Folks, check this out. I can I can create properties to my template and edit them locally here. So this is an enemy. Let me remember. So let me click here, the enemy template. You can see that there's a property and it does have a health. This is created. I can create new ones and delete the existing ones. But here's the deal. If I select my enemy in the map, I can override those properties. So the health of this one is 100. Let me make this a low health. So let me make it 8. And then I will try to kill this enemy. And then this one, I will make it with 1,000 of health. So a lot of health for this one. If I play the game, so this will be the one with 8, and the other one will be the one with 1,000. So this one I will kill with a single hit, probably if they stop attacking me. Here we go, it's that. And this one, oh, he will live forever pretty much, because it does have 1,000 out of health. And this is the same behavior, the same stuff. Let me see if I can actually see here the health of. So this is the one with 1,000. You can see it still have 860 out of health, and this one is 24. This one is almost dying. Let me see this one, 4. Let me try to beat this bad boys real quick. Let me recover my health and grab my stuff. So this one is almost dying that I'm selecting. You go, is that exploded. Here we go. So you can see this happening like in real time, and I'm very excited about that. And this other feature that I know many other game engines have this, such as Unity and Unreal, but having the option to like literally press F3 in the middle of the game and select the stuff with the game running. You can see the game is literally running. I can control my player and select stuff still. This is amazing. Like, I never had this in Blender Game Engine, and now I do have it here, and I'm very excited because it, like, yeah, it brings so many new options. I'm very excited about that. So yeah, good addition. And if you ask how these properties work and what is this health, if I double click my template, basically these properties are the ones in the hood entity of the template. So I can edit here, or I can click the hood and add or remove more properties right here. I can add one, there's a property one. So if I go back to my scene and select these objects, it does have, they all have this property one. Here we go. And if I select the enemy again, click here and delete this property, hopefully it will not crash. I've tested this a lot, so it's not crashing as you guys saw, and it does have, it does not have the property one prop anymore. So good, this is amazing. I can have local overrides to my templates. Finally, it's here, right? Because for a long time there was no way to edit the templated stuff, but I really miss this. Now we can do the bridge with the properties. So amazing new feature. I've done a bunch of fixes when it comes to the performance, and I also have now the frame counter here in the top right corner, because before it was here. Let me disable the UI. It was here, and it was annoying because it was like in the middle of the viewport, and if you play the game, the frame counter will just disappear. So that's not good. Now, if I click here, by the way, you can go ahead and see the profiler, and you can click here to expand and see exactly what's going on. So right now this scene is super lightweight, so it's taking all the time in the swap buffers. The swap buffer is like if the swap buffer takes time, it pretty much means that your game is fine and it is just waiting for the vsync to update your monitor. So my monitor is 60 hertz. It will not gonna run more than 60 frames per second, so that's why the swap buffer is taking all the time. But I can expand this, so I can see exactly what is taking time to render. So I can scene render all. I can see the shadow rendering, and I can see the main scene, and it even shows me the renderable count. So I do have 30 renderables in the shadow pass and 29 renderables in the main scene. A little bit, one less. I believe it's because this one is an alpha, so it's in the alpha blending one. But you can see exactly what's going on. Let me try to go to a more complicated level, maybe, and see this. Oh, it crashed. Good. Let me restart the game. Here you go, I'm back. It's still work in progress, so sometimes you will see some weird crashes like that. But this scene is a good one because it does have a lot more going on. And here now it's not in the swap buffers, it is in the scene itself. And you can see exactly that the debug rendering, the lines are taking a while, so I can disable them, and now it goes to the UI. This is the old GUI bug, by the way, taking this time. It does not mean that the rendering is taking a while, and the debug UI is not going to be present in the final game itself. So, oh, you got the point here. Anyways, you can see the shadow in the main scene is taking more time, and you can see that now I do have 80 renderable, but it's still not a lot. Like it's almost 0 or 1 milliseconds to render everything, so just fine. But now it is good to do to have this. And by the way, I had a problem during the jam that I've actually fixed it after the jam. So the jam entry does have this issue that my animation system, I never finished it. There's a bug. It's not a bug, it's a memory leak, kind of, because it gets freed, like the memory gets freed, but not when you expect it, that it will never unstack the animation. So every time the characters changes the animation, it will keep counting the old one, and that was increasing like crazy the rendering stuff. So this debugger helped me to figure this out. So yeah, good addition. And talking about the animation, yes, I do have some news when it comes to animation. Let me edit this this guy. Oh, well, let me actually go ahead. I remember having a test scene. Here we go. This is a test scene, and there's a guy here with a mesh component that does have an animation. Folks, the animation received a lot of attention here. It still does not work very well when you import animation, unfortunately. I'm fixing that. But if I go to gameplay and then I have the guy character, if I remember correctly, there's a bunch of animations, as you guys can see, and I do have the raw animations. If I double click the animations, it will, oh, not this, of course, not the plane, but this. If I double click, it will change the animation that this object is playing. So I do have the depth animation, I do have a hit animation, an attack. And here's the deal. So this is a raw animation. This is an attack, and I do have another attack, as you can see, and another one. So what I can do in Cave right now is that I can create a random animation by right-clicking, create assets, animation, random animator, and now I can combine different animations. So I do have the attack here, guy attack, and it does have those 3 animations combined. So every time it needs to run an attack animation, it will pick one of those random 3. So if I click here to apply this, you can see that it will randomly change between those 3 animations. So it's doing different animations every time. So that's very handy because it means, like, in the code, when I want to, like, here you can see this character changing the animations. In the code, if I want to change the animation, like if I want to make the character attack, I just need to play this guy attack animation, but this is a random animator. Then inside here there's a bunch of different ones, and I don't need to worry about that. I don't need to worry about like changing that later in the code because it's here and it is easy. It's the same for the damage, if I remember. You can see that I do have 3 damage animations, so every time the character takes damage it will run a different animation. Can see? Just fine. And that's the same for the death. So I do have 4 death animation. Of course it will replay them forever. But you can see that every time it is picking a different one to play. And that's very good. That's very exciting. And I do have the character animator, which is this one. If I double click it, it's now idling. Why? Because the character is not moving. But you can see here that to make this character move around, I don't need to write code. I can use the character animator. So I do have the idling animation. I can pick one. I can have the walk animation. I can have the run animation, and I can have a jump animation. And before you ask, this walk animation or this idle animation don't need to be a simple animation. It can be a random one. For example, it's idling as a monster right now, but let's do something weird. Let me make the damage animation the idle. So you can see now that the character, like it is having a character animation right now, but since it is idling and I've set the idling to be the damage and the damage is a random animator, every time the character idles, it will run like a different set of idle animation. And if I remember correctly, the monster idle, let me search for it. Guy idle monster is also a random animator. So if I click here to edit, here we go, you have 3 idle animations for my monster. So it is idling and eventually it will do something else. No, it does have 2 animations. You can see that the option 1 and 3 are the same. I've just added them twice to reduce the probability of this character to do the other animation, which is the animation that, here we go, this is the other animation. You can see? So very interesting way to create like your animations, right? You have a bunch of options here to do, and I'm very excited about that. Talking about that, let me go to this enemy template, and something that is new here is that if I click here to show the gizmo, you can see this arrow here. This is new because previously, so this enemy does have a character component, and this character component, if I click here to see the debug physics, is this capsule. And of course I can go ahead and change this, like the collision shape. I can change the height of it and everything that I want. I can change the radius, and well, as you can expect. But here's the deal: the engine was intended to be like to use this character component with a specific direction. This is the forward, which is like positive y-axis. This is for, oh, sorry, positive z-axis actually. And this is forward. This means forward in the engine. But there was like not an easy way to find this out before. And now every time you add a character component, it will add this arrow here. It's a little bit like too small, maybe, like hard to see, and it was supposed to be green. I'm not sure why it's blue, but I probably forgot to change it in code. But you can see that there's an arrow now to show you, to indicate the forward. And if I go back to my scene, you can see that they do have this arrow, and they also have this arrow, so you're not gonna get confused. And this is based on Unreal Engine, by the way. Unreal Engine does have an arrow in the default pawn, like the character pawn, and it really helps. And now I do have this. And last but not least, I do have the camera component. So let me go to the player camera here. I do have this camera. Camera HUD is just an empty thing, but the camera itself, I do have the camera component that is seeing the ground. There's nothing here because there's no mesh. So if I add a cube here, you can see that the camera is actually seeing the cube. But here's the deal. what if I want to make this camera a top-down camera? Now I do have a top-down camera component. What is the difference between the camera component and the top-down camera component? The camera component is the component that makes the camera sees the world. And the top-down camera is a component that makes the camera behaves as a top-down. It does have specific stuff. And my plan is to create like a first-person camera and a third-person camera, but right now I only have a top-down component because, like, again, I've used this to make the game and I wanted to add this, but so here we go. You do have the player name. You need to prompt here the player name for the camera to follow. And the way this top-down camera works is it will follow the player if the player goes out of those boundaries. So for example, this inner range, this inner circle here, which is this one, if the player is anywhere inside the circle, the camera is not going to move to follow him. But if it starts to go outside of the circle, the camera will slowly follow the player. And if the player is outside the outer circle, it will literally like, yes, you cannot be this far. I will just go fast enough to catch you. And you can control all the circles, and you do have this indication in the UI, which is super good and handy. I can adjust the height of the camera. It is 4.7 right now. I can change this and go back to 4.7 because I don't want to mess with this game. And I can adjust the distance. Oh, it's wrong, by the way. It's not what I was expecting. Oh, no, it is correct. The distance is like the distance. Yeah. So you can see I can adjust the distance for the camera. The forward advanced is pretty much like if the player is moving to a direction, the camera will try to look at this direction by this amount. And this is super good to give the player more visibility. And this is on ground only. If this is enabled, the camera will not gonna jump with the player, which is like a good feature as well. So let me try to show you guys the camera. First of all, if I've disabled the jump. Let me try to restore the jump here real quick. So I can edit this template, I can select the player, go ahead here in the player component, and the jump here is disabled. I can enable the jump. Here we go. Now the player will be able to jump. And if I jump, you can see here that the camera is not jumping with the player. It will only jump with the player if I touch the ground. So if I click here, you can see that I've just touched the ground and then the camera followed. This is a good practice when it comes to camera, by the way. And you can also see here that I do have a small margin. I've set this to be very small, but you can see that I can move and the camera is not moving. And if I go outside of the boundaries, the camera will start moving. And you can see the player is not centered, it's a little bit offset. And this is the forward advance that the camera is have. So you can see here that it will try to see what the player is seeing. Very cool addition to the game. I really like this. Not to the game, to the engine actually. Oh, the player camera does have this cube. That's why the player was on top of this cube. Cool. Let me delete this. Yep, here we go. Now it's better, right? And there's one last thing that I'd like to talk to you and show you guys that I'm very excited about, which is the UI, not the UI, the scripts. So if I click here in the scripts tab, I do have all the scripts that I've used to make this game. And if I double click it, I can edit, and now I've fixed it like this, the text editor, because it was annoying at first. Now it's not. And now I can just click here and edit my Python stuff. I can add a print, and you can see that I do have methods. I can grab like child of the entity. I can grab different components of it. So you can see here that I'm grabbing the mesh, which is a child of the enemy. And if you go ahead and expand this, you can see that the enemy does have a child, which is a mesh. So I'm grabbing it here, and the mesh does have a mesh component, and I'm grabbing it right here. So you can see all the script that I've made, that I've used in this project is here, and it is amazing. There's a lot more that I've created, like during this jam, I've made more than 40 commits to the engine. And one thing that I'm very excited about, let me try to show you guys in the code. You can see here that I do have a new way to detect hits. I have the scene.check contact sphere, and I do have a contact box as well, which is a way to detect like physics. So in order to apply the damage of the attack of the player, what I'm doing is I'm getting a position in front of the player, and the way I'm doing this is so I first grab like the transform and the position of the player. So transform position, we will return the player position. And then I grab the forward vector of the mesh. So the mesh is like the actual thing that you see. And then I grab the forward vector of it and add to this position. And I'm also adding like an up vector just to make sure that it is not trying to hit the ground. It needs to try to hit like up. And then I'm grabbing this final target position, which is pretty much like in front of the player. It will be like somewhere like here. And then with this position, I'm doing a sphere cast, like a contact sphere, to see if there's an enemy that's, and here you can see me using a tag system of the engine to detect that if the hit is an enemy, and if so, I'm applying the damage. And you can see that I'm getting the enemy component. And what's cool about this is that the enemy component is another Python script with an applied damage method on it. So we can see that the Python can communicate with itself, which is super cool. And I do have this context sphere. So new addition, and that took me hours to do during the jam, like to implement this stuff, but it is very handy. And again, I do have a contact sphere and I do have a contact box. I do not have a contact mesh to allow any arbitrary mesh, but eventually we will have this because this is a good thing to have as well. So anyways, I think this is pretty much like the main stuff. I'm pretty sure that I'm missing a bunch of stuff here, but this is the main stuff. Oh, by the way, small usability stuff. If I play the game, it will always bring the 3D view to focus. That helps because sometimes I'm just adding in the scripts and then I need to play the game. And before I had to manually click here in the 3D view. Now I can play the game just fine. It will work. Okay. And the other addition, by the way, I don't know if you guys noticed it. This is a huge one, and I completely forgot to talk. Is that if I have a mesh selected, as you can see, and if I do have, so let me click here, this folder selected here, and if I play the game, you can see that the folder is the same that I've selected before and the mesh as well. And if I stop the game, you can see that it is still the same. And this is a new stuff because before the engine would restart your selection every time you start and stop the game. And that was so annoying. And now it's not. You can see everything kept the same. It's a small bug, I guess. It's not a bug. It's it's just not implemented. Is that it is no longer selected in the UI. You need to select it again, but the properties are here. And if I start and stop the game, and if I move the transform of this, you can see that it will refer to the correct entity in the scene. It's just not selected here with the gizmos, okay? But you can see everything is here, and now like the game engine, oh my god, it is so smooth and so easy to do stuff. I'm very excited about that. And one last thing before we finish this video is, oh, you can see all the thumbnails are better right now. Not only the template thumbnails, check this out, check the other thumbnails. And by the way, as I said in the previous video, the mesh does have hints, it does have position hints and material and armature. Now you can click here to reload them. You can see that the thumbnail here is way better and this one as well. And if I drag and drop mesh to the scene, it will also create the rigid body for me because it was not creating the rigid body component before. Now it does create the rigid body. So in order to level design, here's how simple it is. And just add stuff. Let me reduce the scale of it. Let me add this and this. You can see very easy. and I can play the game, and it immediately have effect on it. You can see that I can collide with it, and let me see if this will crash the engine, but I think not. It will. No, I can't drop. So if I allow F3, here we go. Like during the game is running, and I can literally spawn stuff to the game. Man, this is so cool. Check this out. I can add all sorts of stuff, and like the game is literally running. See? So good. That's amazing. If I stop the game, the changes are all gone, and I can keep editing the game as I want to. So very simple and super good to have this better thumbnails. You can see all the thumbnails got better as well. The grid. Oh no, the grid. This grid, I've removed this from the engine. Like you can no longer access this grid. So, but let me explain to you, because the engine seems to be freezed right now, but it is actually not. Trust me, it is just doing a very heavy computation for this grid. So let me explain this. First things first, this is no longer a feature in the engine. You cannot add a grid. You can see now the grid is here. But I've created this grid. This grid is just like a super high poly mesh. You can see that it does have 65,000 vertex and 130,000 polygons. And this was intended to be used for the terrain generation of the engine, because the engine like years ago was supposed to have a terrain component to allow you to create terrains, and it needs to have like a super high poly grid in order to tessellate and do stuff. But I've never actually implemented any of that, and I don't have plans to do this right now, but the grid is still here, and the engine was still adding the grid all this time. The reason why it almost crashed the engine is because right now, as I just saw to you, it will create a rigid body component for you, and it will create using the mesh. And this means that it needs to do a very expensive calculation to create this rigid body mesh. And this is the reason why when I drop the grid, it freezed for a little bit. But again, this is just a story. It's not a thing anymore. You can no longer add this grid into with new features of the engine, so it's fine. Don't worry about that. So that's pretty much it for this video. Like I've explained everything, almost everything that I do have in the engine. I'm very excited about that. And what about the release? Like when I will be able to release the engine? Well, the engine is in a good point right now, and I'm just finishing some stuff, and I really want to add some packages for you to get started as a first person, as a third person, as like a UI stuff. Well, just some simple stuff that I really wanted to add. Maybe, well, soon enough, I will be able to release this engine. Oh, one last thing. I promise, guys, this will be the last thing. While editing the engine, I really missed the documentation, but something that helped me is this Python API tool that I've wrote a while back, because you can see it does have all the functions that the engine have in Python, and you can see all the methods and all the variables that it does have. The only thing that misses here is the arguments. You can see there's no arguments right now. I'm working on a fix for that, but I really liked having the API in the engine itself, so I don't need to go to Google Chrome or Firefox or anything like that in order to access at a website and see what's going on. So I'm planning to improve this in future releases. I really like this API stuff. So folks, that's it for this video. It was a long video, I know, but now I was able to explain everything for you guys that the engine does have, and I'm very excited, and I hope you guys get excited about this as well, as much as I am, because yeah, boy, I'm super excited. So join my Discord server. I will leave the link in the description. So if you want to find ways to support this channel and this game engine, make sure you're there so we can all talk about it, and it's gonna be super interesting and fun. So thanks for watching, guys. My name is Guilherme, and I see you in the next video.